Assalamu alaikum. You're watching the special transmission regarding the US election 2020. I'm Faisal Rahman, live from our Islamabad studio. As we all know that this election is actually neck to neck. So close, so precise, so interesting that most of the analysts do believe that they have never witnessed an election of this sort in the US history. Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. Democrats versus the Republicans. Now the situation is very, very interesting. According to the AP, Associated Press, because we'll be quoting that here, the magic figure, as we all know, is 270. Whosoever takes 270 electoral votes is going to win the election. So the popular vote doesn't matter, just like what happened in the previous election. So currently, according to that, 238 votes are with the Democrats, Mr. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And when we talk about the Republicans, where Donald Trump and Mike Pence are competing against the Democrats, they are at 213. But interestingly, when you talk about Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Nevada, and Georgia, these are the states where, other than Nevada and Michigan is very close. There's a difference of hardly 0.2% in favor of Joe Biden. But otherwise, when you look at Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, primarily these are the actual states which will either make it or break it for Mr. Donald Trump. But it seems that he has a slight edge, but still the counting is on, so it's too early to predict anything. Otherwise, when we talk about Florida, that's been taken away by the Reds. You talk about California, 55 votes, very important, the highest. As always, favored the Democrats. You talk about Texas, again, it was with the Reds, the Republicans. So the interesting part is that currently the situation is very close. We should not only just look at the numbers that 238 is the number which is leading against 213. But still, as I said, that when you talk about 6 votes of Nevada, and when you talk about 16 of Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania is again 16, I'm not sure 15 or 16, these would make the difference. So, well, the battle for the White House is still on. Very interesting scenario. Early votes were around 10.5 crore, that is 105 million. Highest ever, almost 70% of the total votes which were actually balloted in the previous election. So you can well imagine the turnout was so high that everybody was talking about that this could make the difference. And now talking about so many, I mean, it's such a huge area when we talk about the US election. There's so much going on. But let me initially introduce you to our panelists, and then we'll continue our discussion. We have with us Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar Saab, expert in foreign affairs in our studio. Waqas, thank you so much, sir, for your time. And we'll be also talking to Imran Jan Saab, senior columnist. He's going to join us over the Skype. Thank you very much, Imran, for taking out your time, and I'm sure we'll have a very interesting conversation today. And other than Imran Jan, we'll be talking to Shahid Ahmed Khan, who is the advisor to Joe Biden over the telephone, as well as Mr. Sajid Tara, who is the Republican leader. Both Pakistanis who are in the United States of America. One is the advisor to the Democrats, the other is a Republican leader, so we'll be having an update from them as well. But let me start off from you, Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar. We all expected a very, very close encounter. Let me use this is an encounter actually. The results, again, I mean, if somebody is winning, he's winning with a very small margin. If somebody is losing, the same case is there. But now talking about whatever has been decided, whether you talk about Texas, or you talk about California, or you talk about Florida, or New York, and so on and so forth. Now the Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, New Carolina, Georgia, the eastern coast, and Nevada on the other side, most likely Biden is going to win from there, but only 6 versus so many. The magic number is 270. So who is taking the lead? What do you say?
So thank you very much. I mean, it's a very tough question. I must say, I mean, when we went through polls and read those and statistics, and I guess this time the difference was very much quite obvious. But again, the results which are showing, I guess this has again challenged, I must say, many polls and statistics. Few things I just want to say. I mean, this is one of the very interesting elections in terms of voting turnout.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I mean, I've just come across the video message the current President Trump about going to courts and all that. So entire in all these things, I mean, you can check the temperature overall. But few things I just want to say. One is when you say about Michigan, that's what the state. Which has never openly politically associated with Republican and Democrats. I mean, it has around.
It's a swing state.
Yeah, so it has around 10 million votes, and 75% are white, and then African American, and then the Hispanic nations.
Muslim Hispanics, yeah.
And I guess it has the population. I guess the edge is it has population out of 5. I guess one is above the age of 60 plus. I guess, and that is the area, the age bracket which is deeply affected by the COVID pandemic, and the response generally in the society about COVID and its impact. Actually, that's not in the favor of the Trump administration. So I guess there is a slight margin that what we see is that there is 2-3% now. The result says that Biden is up. So he might,
he has an edge currently.
Edge. And secondly, I don't know. I mean, how the votes those have been sent through mailing vote particularly. It's a huge number. So there is a lot of I guess expectations from the people, and a lot depends upon those votes. But depends how the Republican, if it doesn't go in their favor, react and retaliate on that. Interestingly, one thing I must say, I mean, the polls and the economic surveys and other also say two things. I mean, we have seen that people, especially marginalized communities over there, have severely impacted and affected by COVID and economically.
Yeah, 230,000 deaths. I mean, that's a huge number.
And more, I mean, the survey, I was just going through a report, it says that, I mean, many communities like Black, Hispanic, and those who live in the close-knitted communities, they have been, using the subways and transit, and they have been, more exposed to the COVID and all that. Well, I think so. The margin which people were expecting, though, for the Biden, that they will have a landslide sort of victory in some of the states, it's not going to happen. I mean, in many other states as well. So that's a tough question, that how things will unfold over the 12-24 hours. But to me, there's a surprise in many ways, because we have seen that 2-3 things. I mean, the immigration and the gun, and the one more point. I mean, this is the key thing that Trump administration have vouched, and the people have voted.
Is it? I think the third one is healthcare, if I'm not wrong.
So healthcare goes towards the Biden. I mean, that has been very much key. Immigration was one of the issues that, I mean, so the Biden administration was looking towards this healthcare particularly. They were voting a lot, so people have been gathered around them on these things. But particularly what I see, I personally see, I don't see that much, the very much obvious campaigning from the Biden administration, the party as well.
You spent a lot of money.
I mean,
especially during the last couple of days.
I was just going to the Texas thing. I mean, I don't know what the political dynamics now have played. I mean, Texas have elected Democratic governor in 2018. And now there is a landslide sort of
maybe,
victory
when you talk about the statement issued by Joe Biden regarding the, that particular issue of the new taxes on the people associated with the oil business, that could have been the reason. But we'll talk about it. So let me also have a word with Shahid Ahmed Khan Saab. Shahid Saab is the advisor to the presidential candidate, Joe Biden. And that means that he is basically a supporter of the Democrats. Shahid Saab, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. How are you?
Shahid Ahmed Khan Saab, can you hear me? Assalamu alaikum. Ji, assalamu alaikum.
I can hear you well. I can hear you well. Can you hear me?
Great, sir. Great, good to hear from you, Shahid Saab. First of all, since you are representing the Democrats here, sir, what is it like in United States of America? Obviously, a lot has been announced, but still, when we talk about Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Georgia, etc., these couple of swing states, their results are still awaited. But it's neck to neck, sir. Let's talk about that first.
It is neck to neck. Well, thank you very much for taking me on the show. I much appreciate that. This is one of the best shows on all the TV channels in Pakistan. But it's a very good question, and it is a toss-up now. I mean, it's of course, the polls were suggesting the Democrats probably will have a landslide, and especially talking about Texas and turning Texas into blue, and that did not happen for sure, and that will not happen. What it is we have to understand that 80% of the votes in this country are predetermined. They are equally split between Democrats and Republicans. 20% votes are, which that's the reason we call them battleground states. That's the reason we call them swing states and many other names we have given them. So those are the 20% votes candidate has to struggle to get. And in those 20,000 votes, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and a few other states, Ohio, North Carolina, are very important. And then you further cut down to them to Pennsylvania and Michigan becomes very important. So this is where the fight is. It's going to be a very whoever wins. It's going to be a very slim victory, very slim number they will win with. And of course, both of the candidates are optimistic in their own way. I mean, but it's going to be what it is. I mean, this is what it is. I mean, it's going to be a very slim margin, and whoever is going to win, it's going to take the White House.
All right. Now, Shahid Sahib, please do inform our viewers about two very important areas. One, that Donald Trump, about a few hours ago, he was talking to the voters and the supporters and people from the Republican side. And he said, well, I'm going to go to the court, number one, and we all know that how many people he has installed in the Supreme Court, and obviously the favors are always there. Number one, about that, because he says that I do not believe in losing the election. If he wins, great, but if he loses, he's going to create a lot of problem, talking about Donald Trump. So let's talk about the legal aspects, sir. That why does he say that stop the counting? Initially he used the word stop voting, but that means that he was actually talking about the counting. That the predetermined votes, I mean, obviously you're talking about 105 million votes. That is what Biden is trying to capitalize upon as well. He said that, that has determined the track and also the direction and the angle. So your take on that particular point first, sir, and then I'll put the other question.
It's a very good question. When President Trump talks like that, it doesn't really mean anything, so to speak. He's basically talking to his own constituents who likes to hear this kind of machoism. If he goes to Supreme Court, yeah, of course. If he goes to Supreme Court, the Supreme Court will decide. And he did not agree with the mail-in ballots to begin with. But there are, like you said, 105 million mail-in ballots. I mean, they are all legal, and the state decides how people are going to vote. So the state of Pennsylvania has decided this way it's going to vote. It's a legit voting method, right? So now you're talking about the judges in Supreme Court. Yeah, it's a 6-3. 6 judges were nominated by Republicans. 3 judges were nominated by Democrats. But we have to understand that Supreme Court judges can take sides on culture, social, religious type issues, not legal issues like the election or. In past we have seen that Judge Roberts didn't take side on the of the Republican Party or Donald Trump about Obamacare. So you see that this is a very prestigious position. And they are not going to take side. Whatever it is, it is. I mean, they are going to decide according to the law. So I think there are going to be legal battles. And apparently, everybody knows that. I'm not giving you something new. I mean, it's a very, very tight race. It's going to be very thin margin. Who's going to win? Whoever is going to win. Legal battles. We are expecting legal battles. And, it proves that America is quite divided now. Much divided than 4 years back. I mean, that of course reflects the result.
All right. Now, Shahid Sahib, another quick comment and then I'll also engage another guest of ours. Please also inform us about the current law and order situation. According to a lot of analysts, that the sales of the weapons, it has gone up like anything during the COVID and even during the last couple of weeks as well. For example, in Chicago, Illinois, we were talking to a gentleman and he said 80% increase in the sale of arms. People are buying and especially when you talk about the Trump supporters, they mean business. And he has said that if I did not win, people would be on the roads. That is the primary reason we have seen so many people putting shutters there. I mean, it seems as if, a Category 5 hurricane is going to hit the entire America. This is what it seems like, because we have never seen. I mean, this doesn't even happen in a country like Pakistan, for that matter. That, you talk about Walmart stores and so on and so forth. I mean, what does that tell you, sir? Is he in some aggressive mood
What
just
it
in
tells
case if
me
Biden
is it's
wins?
going to be well, what it tells me it's going to be a very unfortunate day for democracy for sure. I think if that happens, that will be very, very unfortunate for this country. It's going to divide the country on in a lot of ways. But we have to understand one thing. It's a general comment which I made. But most of the time, the people who are involved in looting and doing criminal activities, they are not really regular law-abiding citizens. There are criminal gangs and criminal people who are looking for these kind of ways to take advantage of these things. And of course, nobody is going to support that. But Donald Trump is not going to support that, and law enforcement agencies and security agencies are not going to support that either. But there's a possibility that can happen, and key cities in the United States have been boarded up. Washington D.C. is boarded up. New York, L.A., and many other cities are boarded up. People are concerned. I mean, Macy's in New York, their flagship store, I mean, that is becoming boarded up. So yeah, if there's a possibility, will that happen the way President Trump is saying? I mean, isolated cases can happen, but not really like that.
I mean, we have also
Not really
learned
like
that,
that.
a
It will be very
temporary wall,
unfortunate.
Shahid Sahib, a temporary wall has also been set up around the premises of the White House. Unprecedented again. We have never heard of such a thing. I mean, because I always try to compare. But sir, we'll also talk to you in a bit. Let me also include Imran Jan in the conversation. Imran Sahib, now, since you have lived in the United States for such a long time, and you do understand the dynamics of elections there. Now, this election seems to be so different, so interesting, and so close that even now we cannot predict who is going to win and who is going to lose, despite the fact that there is a difference of almost 25 votes currently, as we quote Associated Press here, and the Democrats, they have an edge. But you never know. This lead might not mean anything once we hear about the results of Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, Georgia, or Pennsylvania for that matter. Imran Jan.
So what is interesting, well, of course, as you said, this is the mother of all elections, and the United States perhaps has already surpassed 150 million votes, which would be the first time in its entire history. So that is interesting. This is really quite an election, but there is political victory and there's a moral victory. The political victory, we will find out in a day or in a few hours. We'll see what happens in the so-called blue wall states, battleground states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. We'll find out what happens there, and that will give us a result. But morally, the United States has failed itself already. The country remains even further divided. All that noise and all these facts about Russian collusion and the Ukraine scandal, the late response to the pandemic, so many deaths, the fact that President Trump only paid like $0 or $750 in taxes, despite being a billionaire. So all these issues didn't make a dent in the American psyche. Those who liked his racist rhetoric flocked to the ballot and voted for him. Those who were, opposed to that also flocked. A lot of people came out, people who were sick of him and people who said, you know what, we're going to stand behind our president. It's a further division of the society. So in a way, Trump's rhetoric has already won. And that's a sad picture right there. It doesn't matter who wins.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And so I mean, you talked about the violence here in Texas. Biden-Harris bus that was moving, campaign bus,
I
was
saw that visual.
surrounded by white ultra-nationalists, what they call redneck cowboy truck driving people. They were
And
harassing
so
them. They
many
were trying to
trucks.
scare them.
Yeah. And
That
interestingly,
that's
when
meant
this
behavior.
question was put to Donald Trump, he said, do you know they were escorting the bus? They were protecting them.
Wow. What I mean, you
That's
can
what he
always
said,
expect.
right?
He's a con artist. He will say that. He will definitely say that. That is
Now,
definitely something
Imran, another important point, and that is about the polarization in the American society. And a lot of people blame Donald Trump for that. I mean, the white extremists versus the rest of the world, the non-whites primarily, whether you're talking about the Hispanics, or you're talking about the black, or you're talking about the Muslims, or you're talking about the Asians in particular. What is that
Of
supposed to
course.
mean now?
I mean, with Trump making all that hidden closet racism more pronounced, people have come out. People who had that feeling inside, they saw their president talking about these things, and they said, it's okay for us to be openly racist rather than secretly racist. So it gave air to that feeling, that tendency that was already there in the society. He
All
made
right.
it okay to be openly racist. And when a lot of people expressed such racism, a lot of anger was generated in all society, in all communities, Muslim, Asian, blacks, Hispanic. So of course, the country, like I said, it's a much more polarized country than it was 4 years or 8 years or 12 years ago. Um, we can already glean a lot from what we're seeing right now. Like I said, the political victory we'll find out, but morally, the people have already failed themselves right here. All
All
that
right.
noise about stuff he did made no difference at all. It's still the same.
All right, Imran, another point before I also talk to the guest in the studio. Tell me one more thing, and that is obviously we do understand the kind of election this is, the kind of impact it is going to have globally. Forget about what is going to happen inside USA. Trump, in fact, about six and a half hours ago, because I was doing my transmission in the Urdu news, and he was talking to his workers, and he was talking to the political agents and everybody there. And he, in fact, declared a premature victory. And that was something very, very, difficult to digest. That a person, I mean, it's too early to predict. And it seemed that, he has already told his supporters that he has won the election. If something goes otherwise, then there is a problem.
Yeah, he dog whistled his supporters, stand by and stand down and stand by, meaning
Yeah,
if
stand by.
anything
Now, what
happens,
is
you
that
should be
supposed
ready
to
to
mean?
fight.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
was a dog
Stand.
whistle, basically.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is he trying to incite some sort of violence or something?
Oh, exactly. If it's not his way, he is willing to bring this country down as long as he can benefit from it. That's just who he is. That's just what he's made of. And you said globally, what it could mean. Of course, we should always remember Trump is the only president seen in at least as long as you can remember back in history, who has not waged a war, who's actually trying to end a war. So if
Yeah.
Biden wins, it's either side, it's a lose-lose situation.
Yeah.
If Trump wins, he's not going to care about climate change, which is a major issue, and we don't have much time to reverse that. But
Yeah,
he's going to
very
end the war
interesting.
in Afghanistan, so that's a good news. Trump is
Yeah,
Biden is,
Imran, I'll get back to you on that. Now, Waqas Saab, since Imran Saab was talking about the Afghanistan, now interestingly, when we talk about Afghanistan, the election results of this year and the previous one, last year and the previous election, reminds me of that close contest between Abdullah Abdullah and Mr. Ashraf Ghani. Both declared victory, both the times. Each time, Ghani ended up becoming the president, and the Americans had to adjust Abdullah Abdullah somewhere, whether in the form of a CEO or now as the head of the council. But it doesn't happen that way in America, that, okay, you become the president and you become somebody, you become the prime minister for that matter if you lose. But what I'm saying is such a close contest. Let's suppose if it's decided, like Mr. Al Gore, such a graceful man, said, fine, whatever happened in Florida, good, bad, or ugly, it's fine. I'll admit or rather I'll go with the call by the, the court or whatever. Now, the second point, I mean, that is again about the situation that if the election is so close, let's suppose the magic number 270 is achieved by Mr. Donald Trump, but still there is a huge divide. Acceptability, element of tolerance doesn't exist anymore, and people are buying guns left, right, and center. And these are the cowboy kind of people. Talk about the Midwest. I mean, I'm sure if you've been to states, you do understand the culture there. So that is going to further polarize and divide the society.
Yeah.
Let's start off from that point first.
See, you have to see the nature of his politics, actually, the way he played his politics.
Divide and rule.
Yeah. So I guess larger, his politics is all about addressing or creating his own constituency, further strengthening the constituency, which generally we know it's non-educated, white, and then he's creating more division in the society. Now, that's what he fed his politics on, and he did with his constituency. Now, see, there are two important things on that. One, there's a great question, as other participants also said, that the fundamental ideals which U.S. the system actually championed across, and the values of liberal values, inclusiveness, bringing people. I mean, the very foundation of U.S., particularly when we say it was sort of tolerance, bringing people in. I mean, it's completely the opposite the way he did. I mean, come to immigration, the way he treated media, the way he treated dissent, the way he treated.
Parents should go back, and the
Yeah.
kids can stay because they were born here. I mean, remember that?
Yeah, so that's how he treated his opponents. So you can very much understand that this is his style of politics, and that is what he sold. Unfortunately, I mean, this is reality. Every society has some, gray areas. And you always, as a
In fact, yes.
politician, I mean, if there is you're a politician with some sanity, I guess you try to bring in the communities, bridge the gaps. You don't exploit it to the land for your own politics that, it becomes very difficult to mend and heal. I guess no matter what results comes in, the fundamental challenge to the American society itself is that its own value system has been very much deeply questioned.
Yes,
I
yes,
mean,
indeed.
You have voted people, you have voted a person who believes in, sort of creating rift among communities based on certain sort of, their race or religion. That's sad part of it. Coming back to when the U.S. politics and elections happen, everywhere in the world, major media and television channels are covering because of the fact that it has a ripples effect.
Oh, yeah.
It has, by default, it has, certain impacts on the world's politics. We have seen that, over the period of the time from last 5 to 6, 7 years, the nature of politics is regressive across the globe. We have seen incident of racial, hatred, violence, and all these things in the very developed democracies. That's a big question to the world democracies, and I mean to the people of U.S. I mean those who voted. That also is a question for the political scientists. That what matters to the people the most now? Is it very much domestic politics? Do they care about the liberal values? Do they care about the society's larger values and ethos? So that we need to, that this has literally created a lot of questions. Because one thing I understand, you pull out yourself from the climate change and all these things. I guess the entire this liberal order is framed on certain principle and value systems. And being a country who believes that we lead all these things, you have to become a role model. You cannot.
They're a benchmark, basically.
Yeah. So this must have a deeper political repercussions.
Yeah.
I guess this has also encouraged people those who do politics of divide in our region as well, and that's very sad.
Actually, it's everywhere. But in United States, this is the first time that we have seen the divide. It's so obvious. It's so clear. I mean, it's a fault line, basically, that has been, now exposed. So if you allow me, because our friend Shahid Saab has been up all night long, and I'm sure he is very tired. But Shahid Saab, before, we just want you to answer one or two of our questions before we let you go and take some rest. Shahid Saab, there is a story. It says the US Postal Service blows court-ordered deadline to check for the missing ballots. So once you go into the detail, it tells that about a dozen states, in fact, it is going to affect the results of a dozen states because almost 300,000 ballots are missing. So what is this supposed to mean? And sir, can you also tell us about the states so we can get the idea that what exactly is happening?
Well, there are many states. I mean, and when this will start happening. This will it's sort of a it go everywhere. If it goes to Supreme Court, then there's going to be further mess. This is a very, very close race. It's becoming a very, very razor thin race. So whatever is happened with whichever states are involved, it's going to go further down the road, and other states are going to be engaged as well. Talking about Pennsylvania now, I mean, look at the 77% reporting right now, and there's a difference. That the millions of votes has to be counted, and it is most of the votes are mail-in ballots. So you can imagine what can happen. And just tagging along what your other participant is saying about the divide in the country and negating the international agreements by Mr. Trump and demonizing communities and all that stuff. It seems like it is not polarization; it's a serious divide. I mean, backing out of Paris Accord, backing out from NAFTA, backing out from Iran agreement, WHO.
There are more than
NATO,
2 dozen
NDA,
issues, sir, we can
whatever,
talk
right?
about. Yeah.
So, yes, and define science. I think the problem is define science. I mean, problem is when you say there's Paris Accord, you just defy that. You just say environmental issues, environmental science is fake. When you say doctors are not doing the right job, when you say the coronavirus is just is a hoax, when a country which has the most number of Nobel laureates, science and technology and innovation in hallmark of this country, people from all over the country, all over the world come here, and they were given space to work on science and research. I mean, can you imagine a country like that? The leader is defying science. He doesn't believe science.
Shahid Sahib, one more quick comment. One more quick comment, and that is, for example, there are certain states, I mean, their results have been announced unofficially, and you can tell the trend. Secondly, what about those? For example, when you talk about those dozen states from where those ballots they're sent somewhere to be counted and they haven't reached there. So obviously you're talking about 300,000 votes or ballot papers. It's not a joke. What if those ballot papers are from these swing states where they can actually create the difference? And if they are not found, what would you do or what would Trump do?
Oh boy, that's a tough one, right?
We know what Trump is going to do, but what would be your
There's not
your
much
take?
of the Postal Service is the responsible organization who has to figure out, and it may go back to people who will still say we have voted, but our ballot is not there because ballots were supposed to be signed and has to be. If that comes down to that level, all ballots have to be verified. So it's going to be if that happens. Oh man, that's going to be a serious mess, and
Shahid Saab, I tell you, mark my words, you never know this could happen. Maybe we'll be talking tomorrow at the same time after 24 hours in my next transmission. And you'll say, see, that happened. So I think the next 24 hours are really important. And so much is to be decided. And there's still a long way to go. These are just the assumptions and the results. I mean, when you talk about the actual results, there could be changes. Anyway, Shahid Saab, thank you so much for your time, and we'll definitely try to engage you in our transmission tomorrow as well. Thank you so much. Now, moving on to Imran Jan. Imran, I want you to comment on the same question as well, because this is something very important. Missing ballots, where did they go? And if they are missing in action somewhere, and they have that kind of a weightage to create the difference, what's the procedure? Who's going to find them? How long will it take? I mean, there are so many questions arising. Sir, your take.
So it will create one mess that the country may not even know what to do with. First of all, the United States Postal Service will be completely clueless. They're already quite busy right now. What would happen with those ballots? I honestly do not know. As the other participant suggested, maybe people will get those back in the mail with a letter saying that these votes are not acceptable because for whatever reason, either they're not signed or...
You can't, is it okay to call them null and void or recounting or resubmitting maybe?
That's exactly what Trump is trying to do to declare them not usable. You cannot count those votes because of this reason. That's exactly
No,
what
no,
Trump
no.
is trying
But
to do.
my
And
point is that, for example, that person who in fact, who voted for X, Y, or Z, his ballot or his vote is returned back to him. Don't you think he has a genuine right, a legitimate right, to primarily say that, I have voted, or maybe there were more than 300,000 people with me who voted also. Where did these votes go? And can't they consult the Supreme Court of Pakistan in that case? A delayed result might be
Supreme
the.
Court of the United States.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So as good as I know, they will not be able to cast those votes again because the deadline has already passed. Voting
Ah.
stopped last night, 11 p.m. Texas time, and it was, I guess, whatever time it was in California on the West Coast. Casting time is already over. It's
Yeah, yeah.
gone. So
That makes sense.
if
Yeah.
there were some, yeah, so they cannot resend them back. As good as I know, Faisal, and I could be wrong. I personally do not fully know about that.
But this is also an important area. Now, Imran, also tell us about the understanding. I mean, delayed results, that is obviously going to happen in certain states till the counting is over and all. Donald Trump, in fact, said that they should stop. Not he used the word voting, which was wrong. Primarily, he was saying that stop counting. But every vote matters. You exactly know what has happened in the previous election. I mean, the popular vote. I mean, I think she had 3 million more votes, Hillary Clinton, if I'm not wrong. But still, she lost.
Yes.
Over here, it seems that it is going to be neck to neck, but also in terms of the magical number 270, it could be pretty close as well. Now, one more important area, and that is about the voter turnout. We have witnessed that this particular election, whether it was a pre-election polling or the polling on the election day, but it's been normally it used to be hovering around 52-53%. This time people believe that it's over 70%, if I'm not wrong. So that's a huge turnout. What is that supposed to mean? Who else has been added? How many people have been persuaded, and from which age brackets? I mean, if you look at the demographics out there, are these the white people, the non-whites, the youngsters, the old? What is your take?
All of them, because what happened in 2016 was some of these states that have now become battleground states, they used to be called the blue wall states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Many people, they were like, we're comfortable, like these states are going to go to the Democrats. Many people did not come out to vote. And then there was a surprise. Those states went to Trump. This time around, they remembered that. They knew that they had to go out and vote. Plus, the people who
Despite
were
that,
already
Imran, they
sick,
have voted, but still the Republicans, they have an edge, even in Wisconsin, in
that's what I'm trying to
Pennsylvania,
get to.
in Georgia.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those people came out. That explains the huge turnout. The Democrats supporting, remembering what happened in 2016. Then the Republican voters saw that a lot of people are coming out already trying to undo what happened in 2016. They also came out. It became a fight on both sides. Everybody came out to vote for their guy. And that's why we had, so it's not just that the people who were sick and tired of Trump came out to vote. The other side also came out to vote. You see huge lines. When I went to vote, I got lucky. I went to a place where there were not a lot of people, but other places I could see there were long lines after lines, and I commend them on that because they're braving all these. There's a pandemic going on. 230,000 people or more have already died. Close to 9 million, more than 9 million already have the virus. Despite that, so many people have come out. They're braving line because both sides are fighting. The ones who were sick and tired and the ones who lived for 4 years, realizing that they made a mistake by not coming out. They thought they have a comfortable lead. Hillary Clinton lost. So those people came out. As you mentioned, only a few states are battleground. Texas is always going to, I voted for Biden, but it went to Trump anyway. California always goes to a Democrat.
Yeah.
These few states, this is where the fight is. This is where the fight was last time. And the people last time thought they had a comfortable lead, but didn't work. So that explains why there are so many people out. It's, as I mentioned earlier, and other people also mentioned, it's another testament to further polarization. They are fighting, not necessarily that they like Biden, but they're voting because they do not like Trump. And many people are voting for Trump, not necessarily because they like Trump, but because they do not want racial equality. They hate the Black Lives Matter slogan. They are against immigration. So they just want to, overlooking Trump's weaknesses and mistakes, such as tax and Russia collusion and all that. And they're just voting against those issues they do not like. That's why you have so many people out in the street. So many people voted early. I voted early. And so many people voted on election day. It's going to be a neck-to-neck fight. And like I said, morally, the fight is
I would say
already
the
over.
next 4 hours are really important and very, very interesting. Now, Waqas, if you remember, in the previous election, Hillary was contesting against Donald Trump, and most of the people, because Barack Obama had won twice, and being a Democrat and being a black man, I mean, he was the first black president, the 44th president of the United States of America. Now, then we saw Trump winning instead of Hillary, because everybody thought that Hillary might win. She has the political experience. She has been the first lady. She has been the Secretary of State, for that matter. She has a very good eye on the international politics as well. But a lot of people thought that if it wasn't Hillary Clinton, it was Bernie Sanders, things would have been different. He might have won against Trump. This time, it's Joe Biden. Do you think the individuals also matter, or is it more about the party votes?
No, I guess that's a very fundamental thing. The persona of a very candidate. I guess Hillary has some. The people frame it like as a gender component that has sort of played a role, and she couldn't win. I mean, there is a popular narrative here as well.
So this is the third time that a lady is also competing for the vice president.
Yeah.
There was one earlier, and then it was Sarah Palin, and now this time.
But
do you think that is also this should also make it that we don't want even a female vice president, and that also a non-white.
Yeah, but my understanding is with Hillary there was a lot of baggage of Clinton administration and all that. That could also be the one reason. And second, Obama has many advantages. I mean, he was a very different man. He has a
Very
different
articulate.
persona and articulate and very impressive, and has inspiring personality as compared to others.
Both husband and wife.
Yeah. So that was one thing. Here I must say, no, I mean, over there, the way we perceive parties in Pakistan and over there, I don't think so parties are so strong and something like, I mean, it's the individual that matters also. There are some definite states, those will go to the blue. And
Like California, for that matter,
they
would
will-
always be blue.
yeah. But, I mean, Trump has visited, look towards the campaign. We have to understand, okay, his politics was on, of course, division and all that we don't like. But generally, if we see, he has been traveling a lot, meeting people. He has visited Florida. I mean, it's more than dozen visits. Wisconsin, when you are saying he has, I mean, he has, I guess, more than dozen visits he had in Wisconsin.
I mean, he has such a busy schedule. Yeah.
And in Ohio as well.
Yeah.
So when we see all these things, of course, the individual's character, personality, and persona matter. He also attracts to many. I mean, when he comes, I mean,
He has the persona, whether somebody admits it or not.
For those of us his own constituency, I mean, there's when we go there, you meet people. I mean, you see his politics. He likes autocrats. He always appreciates. He tries to build more relation with the
His
people.
presence is always felt.
So more
Wherever he is.
authoritarian.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
see the Kim Jong incident and all these things, the way he interacts with people. So it's a popular understanding that he likes, autocrats become more authoritarian. U.S. system doesn't give that much space because president doesn't much, he doesn't have anything much in local politics because of his, two houses, more powerful. But when it comes to foreign policy, that's the only thing where he has some space to articulate, and he does that. And he tried to play it on that, like China, he did with Mexico wall, then in the Korea incident with China, you see in pandemic the way
So
he's
you
saying,
name it, I mean, it's all over the globe, starting from Mexico to
So because of the space actually he has gained over the period of time, we see the presidents of US have been speaking a lot on foreign policy issues. That's one of the reasons, because I guess they find the space where they can speak. Still they need congressional approval for the wars and attacks and all these things, but still this is something where they can do their own politics. For Afghanistan, you were saying, I don't think so it matters much to the American electorate. But of course, China factor, he tried to bring in using the COVID context and other, and then I guess that appealed to his
And you know,
constituency
they're
as
still
well.
calling it the China virus, China virus. I mean, that really
Yes.
irritates the Chinese. And interestingly, there was a survey conducted in China in which they had asked this very, very pertinent and simple question that whom do you support? Or what do you think, who should be the next president? And 70% people opted for the Democrats, you know, because they believe that things would just settle down. But God knows what's going to happen. Last quick comment. I mean, when we talk about the election results, I mean, we'll get to know about all these within the next 24 hours. Most likely we'll get some sort of a picture that is clear, and, you know, we can read the writing on the wall as well. Now, tell me, this particular election, which is considered to be the most interesting, one of the most viewed, seen, observed, talked about, you name it. What sort of a difference will it make for an average American, sir? After this polarization, this division, this hate, unacceptability, no concept of tolerance.
Yeah, so I guess that it must have, and it has a deeper impact on the society. It will take dozens of years or years, I must say centuries, to heal, because it's easy to exploit people, but it's difficult to bind communities, bring together, given the situation we have. So
And
I
that
guess
was the edge the Americans always had.
so
Community, being together.
together. So that has questioned.
Together we can,
Yeah,
you know.
so that has questioned, but I don't know, he's going to make America great again. So it's sort of greatness. What is the definition of great? But I must say this is a greater question for the American community. It's resilience. It's, I mean, they have to reclaim the space they have left for the people, those who are trying to divide the society. That's the fundamental challenge.
Well, let's see. I think a couple of interesting hours ahead. But thank you very much, Waqas, for your presence. Imran Jan, was a pleasure having you, and thank you so much, Shahid Saab, for giving us time as well for our program. That's all we have for this hour. Inshallah, I'll see you tomorrow for my transmission from 8 to 10 p.m. And by that time, I hope things will be very clear after almost 24 hours. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz.